The Middle Ages, a simpler time full of knights, kings, and the bubonic plague. From a medical perspective, the time in between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance era is one characterized by questionable medical practices, amputations, and bloodletting, all of which were just as capable of killing the patient as they were helping them. However, that's the story in Europe. In other places, particularly the Middle East, the story differs. Just outside of Europe, there is a community of physicians whose medical understanding was arguably superior to their Western counterparts, and their discoveries have had ripples on even modern medicine. So let's talk about it. First off, some context. The year is AD 750, give or take. The Abbasid Caliphate is here, and they've got some pretty big ideas. There's some cool metal, cool aqueducts, cool law, and most importantly for us, cool science. The dynasty was also tolerant to a fault. No matter who you were free to live there, as long as you agreed that their culture was superior in every way. Nice guys, right? So since the Abbasids were chill with just about anyone, there was overall a much greater interest in the cultures that the Muslims were nearby. And they just so happened to be pretty close to Greece, which in its time was an absolute juggernaut in the scientific field. What came of this was a rush to copy down Hellenic texts and have them translated. Not only was this important for preservation, odds are we wouldn't have them without that, but it was also helpful in giving the dynasty a solid start for the development of their medical field. And they made it just in time for the Islamic Golden Age to boot. Now, to help illustrate where the medical field went from here, I'll talk about the philosophies of one Al-Razi, or at least what he thought of Greek medicine. Like many other Persian physicians at the time, Al-Razi's education was heavily influenced by concepts like Galen's humoral system. Basically, all you need to know about humorism is that it teaches that the body is made up of 4 elements, and healthiness came from a balance of all 4. Disruptions to this balance could come from air, temperature, and water quality. The reason why I bring up humorism is because it's a keystone in Greek medicine, and Al-Razi's response to the concept is summative of his take on the field. In his book, Doubts About Galen, he uses his own experience as a physician to make revolutionary conclusions such as, "Hey guys, if I drink a warm cup of water, my natural body temperature is messed up, but I don't die." Which sounds simple enough, but it kind of contradicts Galen's philosophy of imbalance being what causes disease in the human body. However, despite this, Al-Razi still saw Galen as a brilliant man and said as much, despite the holes in his teachings. Which was Al-Razi's take on all of Greek philosophy. It's cool and all, but it's not the gospel, or the Quran. This set a precedent for the community, as it developed a focus on not only analyzing these texts, but also building off of them and using them as a base for more accurate texts and more effective medical practices. Next, let's talk about Ibn Sina, or Avicenna if you're into one-word names. A man who, ironically, is called the Arab Galen. This guy's everywhere in medieval Islamic medicine. Every other resource I found for making this was one talking about how great he is. However, this is for a reason. He is, as he's often called, the Aristotle of Islam. A medical Michael Jordan, if you will. A doctoral Dr. Phil. So what exactly gives him these illustrious titles? Well, for starters, he wrote a lot, with roughly 300 books accredited to him, spanning not only the sciences, but philosophy and religion as well. A handful of these books were even crucial to preserving works from Greek philosophers such as Galen and Aristotle. As for his more original works, one book worth noting is The Canon of Medicine for the Body, which was written over the span of 12 years and details loads of disorders, remedies, ailments, the works. It's also significant for having one of the first instances of the scientific method, which we didn't really have back then. Another piece from him I'd like to look at is simply titled On Medicine, wherein he basically asserts that there's no way to truly know something until we know what causes it, which is another aspect of modern science. Ibn Sina also goes on to describe ailments on the human body as being caused by anything between eating and drinking, air, exercise and rest, and how much doctoring one receives, which once again echoes Al-Razi's ideas of adding new information onto the old. This is essentially the causes listed in the humoral system with a few more thrown in. Now this is really epic and all, but what's it got to do with my doctor, I hear coming from the straw man in the back? To which I respond, slow down. I'm getting to that. In the case of Ibn Sina, the answer is actually really easy. The canon was actually a mainstay in European universities up until the 1800s. This arguably allowed it to influence important folks in the medical field such as Joseph Lister, the guy responsible for making it to where you don't get gangrene after an amputation. He's a cool guy, check him out, Listerine's named after him. Additionally, Sir William Osler, the father of modern medicine, went on to praise Ibn Sina for the canon being the most famous medical textbook ever written. His influence can also be seen in concepts as ubiquitous as how diseases and ailments occur and the scientific method as a whole. Now, from a more holistic perspective, Islamic culture in its entirety was instrumental in the preservation of Hellenic texts, as well as, of course, the writing of their own, which was not only to the benefit of themselves, but to other cultures as well. Thanks to the Caliphate's general tolerance of others, people from all walks of life, even those outside of the empire, were able to enter and learn, and leave with knowledge of both Greek and Islamic writings. This, in turn, allowed their own thoughts to travel, as well as those of Greek philosophers and scientists, and also helped to endow other places with the same advancements. History is a collection of past events. That's a given, but there's more to it than that. It's a series of events that helps to contextualize others, and even things that happened 1,000 years ago can cause ripples that can still be seen today. This, at least to me, is what makes history so fun to look at, and I suggest you dive in yourself to see what kind of connections you can come up with. Or just keep watching videos on YouTube about it, that's pretty fun too.